Outside the Court of Appeal in central London, the world's media started to gather with no idea if they would get a glimpse of royalty, but they weren't left shortchanged.
Morning, Harry. Are you going to visit your dad, Harry? Harry, are you going to go and see the King?
Unannounced, Prince Harry stepped out of the car. He was there to attend another court case, this time about his security. At the same time, his father was starting a tour of Italy. Very different days, but maybe some clues about their current dynamic. That's today's Sky News Daily.
Donald Trump is heading back to the White House.
Together we can truly make America great again.
We are in for an unpredictable but fascinating 4 years.
And we're going to be following every twist and turn for the first 100 days. We'll be bringing you the latest updates and analysis first thing every morning. So join me, James Matthews.
Me, Martha Calnett.
And me, Mark Stone.
For Trump 100, every weekday at 6 a.m, wherever you get your podcasts.
This is Mark Austin with the Sky News Daily. It's been a day where royal watchers have wondered which way to turn. In London, Prince Harry is at the Court of Appeal wanting more police protection when in the UK. In Italy, the King and Queen are on a state visit where political and diplomatic talks sit behind the smiles and all those handshakes. And those royal watchers will be wondering what to make of both. Our royal correspondent Rhiannon Mills opted for Rome over a windowless London courtroom.
Hi, Mark.
OK, Rhiannon, I don't blame you going for Rome. Just before we talk about the King in Italy, though, his son, as I say, Harry, in London, in court again. What's that all about?
Well, you say that I chose Rome. To be honest, it was a complete surprise to everybody that Prince Harry decided to fly into London again. There always is a huge amount of secrecy about whenever he's coming back to the UK, and this was no different. Yesterday, we were desperately trying to find out whether or not he was over, and were literally met by silence from his team. And then, yeah, as you say, at least some of the cameras were there and able to kind of capture that moment when he arrived at the Court of Appeal.
Yeah, and clearly this whole issue of security is a big one for him, given what happened to his mother, Diana.
Yeah, it's huge. And the issue of security has been massive ever since they decided to step away from royal life back in 2020. Immediately they left, their security was taken away from him and Meghan, and it has clearly grated on him immensely. He has consistently said it is the reason that Meghan does not feel safe coming here to the UK, the reason that he doesn't feel safe bringing his children back here. And that is why he has continued to try and fight his corner when it comes to this decision by the Home Office to take his security away. And initially, the Home Office had won their case, and then he was allowed to appeal against it. So in a way, this 2 days is his last-ditch attempt to try and overturn what he sees as an injustice.
And cameras in court, Harry front and centre. He doesn't like all that, or he says he doesn't like all that, so it must really mean something to him.
It's interesting, isn't it, at the minute, looking at Harry? He says he doesn't like all that, but since he stepped away from royal life and since he kind of, I suppose, became unleashed from that world, he has not been afraid to stick his head above the parapet and tell us quite a lot about what he feels and rail against the injustices that he feels he is facing. I think it was probably really important for him to be seen here over the 2 days, in a way to sit there, to take his own notes, probably to feed back to his legal team to make sure that they were representing him in the right way. It's been quite interesting. I've sort of had some guidance from his team in which they have said, look, this is not about him expecting to have the same security that he had when he was a working member of the royal family. This is about him being assessed in the same way that others would be assessed who would potentially be seen as being at risk when they were here in the UK. So whether that is diplomats or celebrities, for example, and at the moment he feels he is not being treated on an even footing.
Right, and he didn't, according to the palace, come in earlier to see his father before the King and Queen went to Rome. Do you think there's significance in that? They haven't seen each other for a long time.
No, and it's really interesting that you bring up his father, because speaking to those who've been close to both sides, I've actually been told that this issue of security has been one of the really big sticking points when it comes to father and son patching things up. Of course, a lot of other things have been said, whether it was in Harry's book Spare or whether it was in the Netflix documentary, some very unkind and hurtful things. But yeah, I am told that this security matter is a big issue between father and son, because I think ultimately Harry feels that whether it's his father or whether it's those around his father, so the courtiers, they haven't done enough to kind of help him fight his corner. So yeah, it shows you just how important an issue this is to Harry, but also in terms of his wider relationships with the rest of the family. And it stops him coming here to the UK as well.
Let's talk about the King and Queen. Just, 10 days, 2 weeks ago, the King was in hospital. So it shows just how determined he was to do this trip.
There is no doubt that this is a man who is hugely energised by his work. He also, like most of the royal family, if you cut them in half, it would say service and duty. He sees it as a really important part of his role, that diplomatically he should be here as head of state to represent the UK. There is no doubt, though, that 10 days ago, I think for all of us, it was like, oh, blimey, yeah, you could almost forget that he is still having cancer treatment. He had to be admitted because there'd been some kind of side effects around that treatment. But yeah, all of the messaging around it from the palace is, look, this was what they like to call a little bump in the road. He is still very keen to be carrying on with his official duties. Last week, he was still busy again. They were trying to give him a few more rest breaks before Italy. But since they arrived here yesterday afternoon, it's been busy and it's been full of those big photo ops that we usually expect from royal tours.
Right. And I saw something that was said by the UK ambassador to Rome, Lord Llewellyn. He said that this is intangible but priceless. So in terms of soft power and post-Brexit reset with Europe, how important is it?
I'm going to steal that phrase, I think, going forward from Ed Llewellyn. People are always a bit sniffy whenever they talk to me about soft power. They're like, oh, it doesn't really matter. Quiet diplomacy, what on earth is that? But yeah, I just think it perfectly sums it up. Intangible, but priceless. And yeah, ultimately, since they arrived here in Rome, Ed Llewellyn yesterday was saying this is a really important moment to reinforce links between the UK and Italy, because ultimately it's a time when the UK is trying to more widely reset our relationships with our European partners. Also, of course, you've got to throw into the context of it. Ed Llewellyn yesterday was also talking about economic ties. Never have my ears pricked up so much in a royal briefing thinking, oh yeah, of course, with tariffs and everything that's going on with that. That is hugely important at the moment. And of course, Donald Trump and the destabilising effect that he's having on the world order and relationships more generally. So yeah, people might think, oh, what's the point in these royal tours? It's just a load of photo ops. But look, talk to anybody who is in diplomatic circles and they will tell you that these tours, the bonhomie around them, have the most amazing, lasting impact that you just don't get from, for example, a visit from a prime minister.
No, but on that point, David Lammy on the trip, which is interesting given you've got an Italian government at the moment that is, quite pro-Trump and certainly very different politics to the British government. It's an interesting dynamic, that one.
It really is. And these royal tours, like I've been on various royal tours to different European countries and spoken to various ambassadors who said, there is nothing like a member of the royal family coming here to encourage people to get around a table, to attend meetings that they wouldn't normally. David Lammy, for example, Foreign Secretary, wouldn't usually necessarily be invited automatically into a room with the President or the Prime Minister. But as soon as he can follow in on the coattails of the King and Queen, he's in there. And immediately that's opening up discussions. It's interesting, of course, that you do mention Donald Trump as well. We know that Donald Trump is a huge fan of the King. So I suspect there'll be some quite interesting conversations between the King and Italy's Prime Minister when they meet up.
Yeah, it's really interesting, isn't it? This position that Britain outside Europe now, but still really keen, for all the reasons you've just outlined, to be influential within it and using the royal family as part of that.
And look, there's been nothing understated on this royal tour so far. With all of the tough diplomatic talks that are going on at the moment, as I keep saying, you could think, well, this is just a load of old fluff. But I think behind all of that, you can't not think about the diplomatic discussions that are going on and how the royal family have been so influential within all of that. And the images, the pictures around this trip, for example, he meets the president and they immediately have a fly past from the Red Arrows and the Italian equivalent of the Red Arrows, immediately saying, look, our defence ties matter to us, and look, here we go, we're showing you the pictures that are going to sell around the world and hopefully show that to an international audience.
Yeah, the defence side of this is interesting. Isn't there a British aircraft carrier in port in Italy that's going to be part of this trip? Is that right?
Ed Llewellyn yesterday was talking about that. They're actually going to go out on manoeuvres in the Med in the summer, kind of a joint UK-Italian force. So yeah, they're really keen to talk about the amount of work that's going on between our joint military forces, and also reinforcing how both countries stand steadfast alongside Ukraine, as we saw when Prince William visited Estonia recently. Again, talking about Ukraine, talking about NATO, talking about defence. It's really been a fascinating time to follow the royal family in terms of how they've been deployed by the UK government to reinforce that diplomatic messaging, whether it comes to things like the economy or whether it's around issues around defence.
Right, and on a more personal level for the King and Queen there, 20th wedding anniversary falling on the evening of a state banquet there.
This is probably one of the most controversial and most talked about royal relationships of the last few decades. But wow, haven't things sort of turned round? If you think they were absolutely vilified in the 80s and 90s as the reason that Charles split up with Diana. And yet this is a couple who've known each other since the 1970s. Many who kind of have watched on would say they were a genuine love match. They were sort of meant to be together. They are now this kind of perfect working partnership. We've seen it today as they were posing for pictures outside the Colosseum. Tomorrow night for their 20th wedding anniversary, you just will have to watch the fact that they will be there, kind of the star guests, front and centre at this glittering royal banquet. It is so far away from the fact they used to have to hide their relationship away, and yet now they are, I would say, largely accepted and ultimately alongside each other here representing the United Kingdom. You can't get away from the fact that, Prince Harry being in London is an unwelcome distraction, I would say. But Charles and Camilla, they are no strangers to the personal and the family stuff getting in the way of their public duties. And you wouldn't really get any inkling that they're being distracted at all by Prince Harry. I think they just want to do everything they possibly can to do what the UK government expect of them and to really keep their hosts happy.
Just on a final point, where do you think that relationship is heading?
I think the difficulty that's really transpired over the last few years is the personal conversations that have ended up coming out, whether it's through his book Spare, whether it's been through Netflix documentaries. It's very difficult to get an accurate picture from either side about what's going on. Certainly, if you ever try to speak to Kensington Palace about how Prince William feels about it all, you are literally met with complete silence. There is nothing. I think there is a long way to go in terms of rebuilding those relationships. And I just think it's desperately sad that father and son still seem worlds apart, I suppose, after Prince Harry decided to step away from royal life.
OK, Rhiannon, thanks very much. Enjoy yourself in Rome. Thank you.
I certainly will.
Now, before we go, we have a favour to ask. We'd love to know a bit more about what you like and don't like about our podcasts. If you've got a spare 5 minutes, you can let us know via the survey link in the podcast description. I'll be with you again tomorrow. See you then.
Donald Trump is heading back to the White House.
Together we can truly make America great again.
We are in for an unpredictable but fascinating 4 years.
And we're going to be following every twist and turn for the first 100 days. We'll be bringing you the latest updates and analysis first thing every morning. So join me, James Matthews.
Me, Martha Kelnick.
And me, Mark Stone.
For Trump 100 every weekday at 6 a.m, wherever you get your podcasts.